Audience, welcome to Viewpoint from Overseas. I am your host, Misbah Azam. With me, my regular panel, my regular friend, Mr. Riaz Haq and Mr. Sabahat Ashraf.
Hello.
Sabahat, let me start from you. You saw Pakistan elections. You saw allegations of pre-poll rigging. You saw allegations of rigging. And now the parliament is formed. How you see all these things?
Well, you've thrown a very open question.
This is a very open question, and I want you to select from where to start.
Where to start? Actually, let's say, if you want to start from a very general point of view, first of all, a new government has been formed. This is the third government in a row in the sequence of democratic governments, or as other people have put it, twice in a row now, democracy has evolved and a democratic government has taken over from another democratic government. Just that in itself is a huge step forward. And the second thing to say, I would say on a baseline, we've all had various discussions about Mr. Imran Khan, the new Prime Minister, and what his capabilities are, how appropriate or suitable he is for the job and all of that. But we have to understand that this is the middle class or a certain type of Pakistani stepping forward, taking leadership, not as far as we know, or not from the traditional financially corrupt colonial ruling class, post-colonial ruling class. So this is definitely a step ahead. Now, the reservations some of us have had on how Mr. Imran Khan will rule and what kind of alliances he'll make and what kind of policies he'll be able to implement are still there. And as everyone saw, or several people have said that as he gave his speech in Parliament, he still sounded like, to quote Nadeem Farooq Paraja, he hasn't gotten off the container. Now, that is a little bit of concern. But on the other hand, he is leading an insurgent movement whose focus is on corruption, on delivery. So let's give him a chance. Let's see where he goes. On the other hand, in any parliamentary democracy, we have to look at those aspects. This is a coalition government. It's not a minority government. It's a coalition government. It has two ministers, for example, from the MQM, giving them two very interesting ministries, IT and Telecom, and on the one hand, and law and parliamentary affairs, I believe, on the other, and other people. So let us see how that lasts. I know some people are taking bets. One prominent thinker's bet was 6 months. Another one said 22 months. But even if this government lasts for 22 months in a parliamentary democracy for a minority party, a party with 151 out of 342 seats, to last 22 months itself would not be a bad thing. And on the other hand, let us look at the opposition. We have, as we have said, or I have said in a show or two or three ago, Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. He might be an inheritor or whatever, but he has as much of a political record as Imran Khan. He's never held office. As someone pointed out, this for both of them, this is their first full-time job. Mm-hmm. And he has proven himself, as we were saying, he's hitting his stride as a leader. He's young, and he has some very interesting, very effective political players behind him, not the least of which is his father, who is a political operative. And there are very polished other PPP stalwarts and other people behind him. So let's see what he does. And, if we want to go into his family history, we can go into the family history of PTI leaders. That's not the point. The point is what he does going forward, what Imran Khan does going forward. The MQM, again, has shown that they can step forward and work with the ruling party. The PPP and its leaders seem to be putting down some really healthy statements in terms of being a loyal opposition. And Imran Khan is leading an insurgent movement. That would be my summary. Let's see where it goes. And we are there to, keep the pressure. I think that one very last thing is that principle we have often very pronounced in American politics, where we say the people have to make the government do stuff. And now it is time to have them deliver on some of these things, to make them do the things. I personally have been raising that issue about the voting rights for overseas Pakistanis. We are all overseas Pakistanis. Either declare us not citizens or give us the vote and let us vote. The PTI, to their credit, very recently, it's been rather recent, but they have, even in opposition, brought a court case on that. They're trying to make it happen. And let's hope it gets implemented. We're going to keep that pressure on.
Yes.
Yeah, I think setting aside a lot of the bickering that's normal in democratic politics, you're going to see allegations and counter-allegations. You're going to see media focus on controversies and try to get higher ratings and take positions, partisan positions. But if you look at the big picture, I think this is a historic moment in Pakistan's democracy, Pakistan's history. One of the big things, obviously, as Sabah had pointed out, is that you've had a very peaceful democratic transition. There was an election. Certain parties lost, other parties won. And then you have a new government. Now, one image that struck me the most is somebody put it out, I saw it in the social media, a comparison of the treasury benches during Nawaz Sharif's time, the first session of the Nawaz Sharif government, parliament in 2013, and this session, first session, where the parliament was elected, was sworn in. The difference was very stark, very sharp difference. In the picture from 2013, there were 5 people standing up in front, taking oaths in the treasury benches. All 5 were from Punjab. In the picture for 2018, there was Imran Khan, who represents basically the federation. And then there were 4 people, one from each of the provinces. There was one from Sindh, one from Balochistan, one from KP, and one from Punjab.
How about 2008?
I haven't seen that picture, so I have no idea.
Same, actually.
So I think it's important to recognize that this election is good for Pakistan in many different ways. After 30 years of 2 parties basically, being prominent and taking turns at power, now we have a third party emerging. People have yet another choice, and they voted for this choice this time. If they don't perform, if they don't do well, if they don't deliver, they can go back to the other 2 choices, or maybe yet another, force may emerge as a result of it. My hope is that there will be reform within the dynastic political parties, that new faces, new leadership will emerge from within People's Party and from within the PMLN. I am very happy. In fact, I really liked Bilal's speech. He spoke very eloquently. The part that I liked best, he started out by saying, Mr. Imran Khan, you are the Prime Minister of all of Pakistanis.
Yes.
And that includes, and there he actually made a pretty sharp criticism of him. You're the president of the people you call donkeys.
Yes.
You're the president of people you call zombies, zinda lashe.
Yes.
You're the president of all of them. And my hope is, and basically he expressed the hope, that you will behave like the Prime Minister of all of Pakistanis, not just a certain section of Pakistanis. I think that's a very good hope. I hope that happens. I hope that Imran Khan can emerge, from the politics of yesterday, which was a partisan politics in which he fought against these 2 other parties and brought them down. Now he needs to rise above those partisan differences in governing Pakistan.
Okay, so let's get to a little bit more specific, and with your permission, I will start with Riaz Haq, this question. Riaz, both of you, when you guys gave the opening statements, I would say the summary you gave about how you guys see it, one thing is common I saw between your statements, and that common thing is that this is the third political transition of a democratic transition. Okay. Here are critics who say that in Pakistan so far, military either sitting in front and creating democracies or sitting in a backside and creating democracies. So this is the case where the military is more of a kingmaker than to be a king. And whatever happened before, Bilawal Bhutto also mentioned this thing to bring Imran Khan there, what kind of process being exploited and all those things. You can disagree with it, but that is the perception I'm talking about. So they say that if these are the political or democratic transitions, why not 1962 is a political transition, democratic transition? Why not 1985? Why not 2002? They are all coming to in the hands of civilian. How do you answer to this type of question?
Yeah, I think this is a caricature of Pakistan. I don't see this as the real Pakistan, where military basically calls all the shots and nobody else has any power. This is not true.
Okay.
Military is definitely a player. It's a powerful player. It's an important player. It makes a difference. However, it alone does not determine what happens in Pakistan. One of the accusations against the military, which I think has some validity, is that they encourage the so-called electables to go from one party to another, to one particular candidate, a party that they don't like to one that they do like. And that improves the chances of the party that they do like to be elected. But that still does not determine the outcome, because there are more than one electables in a lot of these constituencies. People can still choose to go for one electable versus another. People can also decide to reject all of the electables, because at the end of the day, it's the people who are voting. In this particular election, I was so happy to see that people were not afraid to challenge these electables. They confronted them on the streets. There were a lot of social media, clips that I saw going viral, in which they were demanding to know from these electables who had been elected before as to what have they done for them, how many potholes have they fixed, how many, water supply issues that they resolved, daily issues that people are worried about. So I think things are changing. Now, I even heard that some people from very, very poor backgrounds, I read about a Hindu woman from a Dalit background who actually was a candidate for one of the seats in Sindh. She did not win, but just the fact that she challenged the Vadera, the electable of that particular district, is a big deal to me. And by the way, she's not an ill-educated poor, she's poor. She's from a poor background, but she's not ill-educated. She has a master's degree from a university. So
and
I
Senate
think,
also. And
we're seeing change in Pakistan.
Yeah.
So let us not just dismiss everything as military basically deciding everything. Military does not decide everything. Military plays its role. Military does things to try and advantage certain parties over other parties, but it does not determine the outcome at the end of the day.
Sabah.
What do I think of that? Well, when you talk about Pakistan and its history of military involvement, I have just said two things for a little while. One is that the folks inside the establishment or the military or security state, whatever you want to call it, they are very smart. And this kind of manipulation and control does not happen, as Riyaz Sahib is saying, it no longer happens in an outright pushing things down way. The problem is that these folks sometimes have a thumb on the scale. And think about it this way. If they wanted to have, I'm not saying that, if they want to have a prime minister they can control, it's actually in their interest to not help him get an outright majority. To keep him just, enough so that he can get power, but not strong enough to rule on his own. Because they've actually, if you go back and see it, they have seen what happens when a prime minister starts to get too much, gets too strong in his boots. Because that is what happened when Nawaz Sharif became Prime Minister had such a strong majority, he tried to change the army chief. And not only that, he threw his weight against the Supreme Court. He did a lot of these things. So just because they are not trying to knock everything over does not mean they're not having an effect. And I would actually agree, and I've said this before, that we have to now start thinking in terms of the military and the security establishment being one of the power centers within a political process. Which is what is happening. However, on the other point, they have kept, a thumb on the scale, and a cynic might say, is it progress? The old Will Rogers quote about, is it progress if a cannibal uses knife and fork? Mm-hmm. That's something to think about. However, when you come back to it, also the military does not come back openly until there is an environment, and some might say they're able to create an environment where the people want them to. And we're not there yet. So them not coming back now, I don't think is any proof that they will not. Mm-hmm. Secondly, the cycles they follow. If you look at Pakistani politics, just on an empirical basis, from 47 to today, we had a coup in 58. We had basically much turbulence in 68 or something. Then 78. Then I believe 88. 77, 78. I'm going on a 10-year cycle.
Yeah.
So we are kind of on a 10-year cycle. And the thing is, we have just hit the 10-year mark. We've had 2 5-year governments. Now, I think any time we go beyond this really is precedent setting. And the second thing will then have to be, can this government do what it says and deliver and prove? There's that old adage, I think it's propaganda that keeps coming up, and you can call it a meme, but it's really, that I think self-fulfilling prophecy of saying, oh, but civilians never achieve anything. Give them some time. Let's have a civilian government get in there and achieve. And they have been, we can sit down and discuss a lot of the things that have been done under the previous 2 governments. Pakistan is in real dire straits. There have always been problems, and therefore they have not been able to achieve too much. But there have been structural changes, constitutional changes. There have been, income support program. There's been changes in how we run our parliament. And the very fact that we're now at a point where we've had 3 governments. So let's see how it goes. And I think this actually, as Riaz Saab said, the word is historic. This really is a watershed moment. Let us see how much further we can get, what our current players are able to achieve, and whether they are able to, frankly, roll back unnecessary influences within the political realm. Let's see what the political realm can achieve.
Okay, Riaz, how about you? Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So I think there is a common misperception that ISI is different from all the other intelligence agencies in the world. There are a couple of reference points that I'd like to share with you. One is there's this guy who worked for the CIA, was a pretty senior official. His name is Michael Shore. He has said in his interviews that ISI is no different than any other intelligence agency in the world, whether it's the Australian intelligence agency, the American, the British. Now, when he says that, people say, oh, but the intelligence agencies in other countries don't interfere with the political process. Well, that's not entirely true. It was, I think, a few months ago, Charles Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, was on a show on MSNBC with Rachel Maddow. Mm-hmm. And she was asking me about, Trump's troubles with the intelligence community, that he's going after them, and what will the intelligence do? And here is a quote from Schumer. He said, "Let me tell you, you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he is being really dumb to do this." This is about Trump. Mm-hmm. Now, the issue is as follows, what he's pointing out. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of skeletons that all the politicians have. There's a lot of stuff that they've done badly, they've done wrong.
There is power, there is a corruption.
Yeah. And the intelligence guys know this. The American intelligence know, They have what we call the kacha chata.
Yes.
All the facts about them. They have files on them.
The goods.
The American Intelligence Agency does, the ISI does, Pakistani Intelligence Agency, Australian, British. If you really piss them off, they'll go after you.
Yeah.
This is what Schumer was saying. So I think this is a fact of life that we tend to, Pakistan gets a very unique treatment in that, from the Western, news media and commentators, from the Pakistani liberals, from the Indians, that saying that this country is unique. This intelligence agency is really bad. They're terrible people. The fact that they're saying these things about the Pakistani intelligence community tells me that these guys are actually able to do some things that can hurt the people that don't like.
Yeah, but see the critics.
Could I raise a couple of issues?
Yeah. I will come to you. I'll come to you. Just how about you finish it up? Then
my question there is when Chuck Schumer is talking about the intelligence community getting back at someone. The difference I would see is that in Pakistan, it's not just getting back. They are proactive. For example, I would just ask a simple question. Do you see the CIA or the FBI's intelligence unit going around with huge wads of money like the Pakistani military and intelligence did when they founded the ISI? I mean, that's now on the record from Aslam Beg himself, the Chief of Army Staff, that the X amount of money was given to X person to start X party.
Yeah, but they don't all operate in the same manner.
Yeah, but
they have different ways. Saying that they don't do exactly this, you're right, they don't do exactly this.
I agree.
But they have their own ways of getting back at the politics.
The difference you're raising is
the politicians who are essentially compromised, they don't have a backbone. They cannot stand up to anybody.
That's what it is.
If these politicians weren't so compromised, they wouldn't be so worried.
See, first of all, I'd beg to differ that if someone really wanted to go after you, you have to start out compromised before they can get you down. Because, and that's actually me saying even more than you were saying, that if they really wanted to go after someone, they could. But on the other hand, and I'll try to leave it here, I just want to make a distinction between getting back at someone when you go after their bread and butter and being proactively involved in the political process.
Yeah, let's move on so that we can, I want to discuss two more things with you and with Sabah's permission, I will start with Riaz.
Please.
Riaz, CM of Punjab, Mr. Khan nominated. He said that he's the first ever person from the most underdeveloped area from Dera Ghazi Khan. Dera Ghazi Khan is not quite under. They had a president there. They had Mr. Khosa was from there.
So this is not underdeveloped. There's no question about it.
Yeah, but not the underdeveloped, and not the first time. Second thing, this person was charged in 109, in which Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was hanged in that the same charge, And then later on, he was not released from the court because he made the deal with them. Then his father was twice the MPA from there, and he virtually didn't do. Himself, Mr. Buzdar, he lives in the city. He never lives there in his own town. So, anything Mr. Khan say, do you think Mr. Khan was incorrectly advised?
I think that's probably the case. He probably, he doesn't know everybody. I think he's been given this advice from somebody from that part of the Punjab. I think the key point here, to me, is that we've had so many chief ministers from Lahore, from the more developed areas of Punjab, that it's okay to have somebody from a less developed area.
So I don't
know about this particular person, so I can't say, if this is a good choice or not. But the spirit in which I think the choice was made is a good spirit. Now, hopefully, they'll correct this mistake. That's what my hope is. That we have to give him a chance. I think we're not going to have him do everything right the first day. He's going to make a lot of mistakes. But if we really want to give him a chance, we have to let him make these mistakes and learn from those mistakes and make the corrections.
Sabah, there is another thing there that, I agree with Riaz that we should give a chance. But question is, that is he the only one who can do this job from the thing? Second part is that he just joined PTI. I mean, just 40, 50 days before election.
Wow.
Third thing is, which is even more important about him, that now people are saying that he is the nominee of Mr. Jahangir Tareen, and the de facto Chief Minister is Jahangir Tareen. How you say these things?
Well, let me start from that.
And sorry, Riyaz, I'll give you a chance to answer if you would like to.
Yeah. No, but let me start from that point about giving him a chance. Mr. Khan has now been in politics for 25 years. And a lot of his political decisions have been the same way. So when people say give him a chance, oh, he's new, he did. You remember that moment when he got up and said we should have our economic advisor should be Atif Mia and appointing him that. And then the very next day steps back and says, oh, no, I didn't know he was Ahmadi, I can't have it. So to me, that's not just bad decision making, that's bad. In US politics, we call it bad staff work. Right? And bad staff work happens for 2 or 3 reasons. Either Imran Khan did not let his staff prepare him for that and make the good decision, or he's got really lousy staff that did it. Because background checks and making sure when you appoint someone, you go and you think a little about what is this person, what does he represent? The represent part they've presented very well. But then you go and do a background check. You at least do a Google search to know who this guy is and how will it seem. Because right now, Imran Khan coming to power has set up expectations. It is not that the rest of the world is, or people like me are having high expectations from him. No. You read my Facebook posts and all of that from day one, people that were hugely critical of him during the election have all, to a man, woman and child, posted at least one status saying he is now Prime Minister, we want him to succeed, let us support him when he does the right thing. It is he himself and his supporters who have set up this expectation of a perfect Naya Pakistan with very good decisions, and we will, literally, I think Bilal Zardari put it, he actually said that I will commit suicide before going to the IMF for money. He set that standard. It is actually the people that we consider as opponents that are now going and saying, hey, we have to talk to the IMF right now. It's okay to talk because it's necessary. That's the problem, right? So, it's that, what we call in Urdu, call or fail mein tazad, right? If he's not doing that, that's a problem, right? And let's see where it goes. I mean, if he made that decision about that, we can go back and do a long list of things over the last 22, 25 years, or even since he became Prime Minister. So, and yes, I think we should let him, we should let him make some mistakes, come forward, but then the response to when he does that should be for the loyal opposition and for people of goodwill to be able to go back and push back and say, yaar, ye aapne kya, what have you done here? Should you roll it back? And if he rolls it back, I think if he rolls it back, does it the right way, that's actually a very good precedent. It is rare in any country for a politician to be able to get up and say, hey, I made a mistake, let's fix it. That would be wonderful. But I think he doubled down on Buzdar, right? Let's see where he goes.
Yeah. Yes?
Yeah, I think the people who did not support him will jump at every opportunity to criticize him. And this is one of those opportunities. And he has to know that. I think he understands that. My only hope is that when it is an issue, when he makes some mistakes, that he will acknowledge it and make corrections so that the outcomes improve. That the situation obviously is never going to be perfect, but the situation is better than it has been. People want to see change. People want to see improvements in their lives. If those improvements don't come, if people don't see the results, then he will not be able to continue, and he will not be able to hope for, so many chances. He's going to maybe get 1 or 2 or 3 chances or 10 chances, but it's not endless. People's patience is not going to be endless. They will go after him. And we have a lot of the people who never wanted him to become Prime Minister. they will be waiting for every opportunity, for every mistake he makes, to go after him.
Okay. So, with this note, Riaz said a very good thing in the end that Mr. Khan, now it's time for you to come out and walk on your talk. It is over. You are not opposition now. Initially, we can stand your protests and all that, but you should not protest. Your people should not protest. Now they have to be answering every questions. But with all that thing, it is good that every 5 years, that if governments change, that was always good for democracy. And as Riaz Haq very rightly mentioned, that after a long time, there is a two-party monopoly. Is somewhat broken, although a lot of people who are coming in this PTI and they won the elections, they are from the same party. So it's a pseudo new system, you can call it, and we have yet to see how Mr. Khan takes care of this and how he runs it. So this is all for today. I am your host, Misbah Azam. This is Viewpoint from Overseas.